This shows, well, why are there Chinese people so suddenly grasping onto prosperity? This shows sort of a rapid attempt to jump and catch up with the 21st century in a rural area of what a wedding might look like. To understand how the Chinese government works, this is a mock debate of several cabinet members arguing about a particular issue, showing you how the Chinese government bureaucracy works. And this is people being entertained in the audience. And this is Alan Eustace, my boss, and a bunch of engineers getting little red books and flipping through them. This is everybody in the Chinese uniform. This is our Chinese name launch. This is the big Google-style party. This is the Google dance. This is more pictures. This is one of the Googlers getting tricked on stage. So lots of fun, but really connecting so that people understand why it is the way it is and how we can learn from the lessons of the past, understanding the Chinese culture, people, expectations, feelings, so that we have a chance to be successful. Lastly, I'm going to talk a little bit about R&D, a little bit about how we do R&D, how we do it worldwide, how we develop products, and lastly, how we connect with Kirkland. So very interesting fact is that we have 30 R&D offices worldwide, all built in 3 years. This is probably an unbelievable feat by any any possible imagination. You can see it all over the world, in Europe, Russia, Eastern Europe, Israel, United States, Canada, Australia, Brazil, India, Japan, and of course China. So how do we do all this? Well, these are a couple of things that we try to do. One is we have how do you avoid redundancy with so many R&D centers? Well, we actually manage everything by the internet, right? By the intranet in this case. We keep all of our projects, milestones, progress is all included in what's called PDB, our product database. And that this will ensure that before you do something, well, you better search for this thing you're building to make sure if someone else isn't building it, maybe you can use theirs or they can use yours or you can do it together. And of course, sometimes, a little bit redundancy, if it's alternate approaches, could make sense. Let the internet prove which is the best approach. Second is that we want to be reasonable about work distribution. We're not going to force each group to assign, China shall work on X, Kirkland will work on Y. We're also not going to let them randomly pick. So really, we try to get each R&D center to drive certain larger initiatives. And you'll hear about some of the projects driven in Kirkland and in China, for example. And we encourage collaboration. You don't want the collaboration, and when you have collaboration, you want to divide up components. If you have a project X that's got 3 components, you don't have 3 people you don't have people in 3 sites working on all aspects of the 3 components, and that's a recipe for disaster. Ideally, you want just 2 sites or so to work on the projects, and you want each one to clearly own certain components, and one of them to be the primary delivery. Right. So that comes out fairly naturally by who the thought leaders or critical mass is. We communicate a lot. That's why I've spent a lot of time traveling. The second time I'm in Kirkland, I've been to a lot of other offices. Peter Wilson, who's in the back, who manages our Kirkland office, will be coming to China to visit us. So lots of travel. But also, we believe video conferencing does work. And we install it in every conference room. Actually, in almost every conference room, we have a setup like this one with 2 projectors, one able to project PowerPoint or a demo, the other one showing people at the other side. And of course, that's a camera allowing for two-way communication. And we have lots of mailing lists, meetings, and gatherings. And lastly, it's important to give some top-down direction. Not micromanagement, but just high-level direction. That everything we do should be about organizing the world's information. So that's how we give people a lot of freedom, but we also don't have a lot of random projects. And we have a very simple rule of 70-20-10 of doing 70% search and ads, 20% related to search, and 10% brand new things. And we try to manage that distribution across the board. Just to give for people who are not familiar with Google, here's how we innovate. In contrast with many models of innovation, I've worked in many companies, and here are some of the research R&D ideas I've run into. So if you think about R&D, it's really research and development. Research is the person who comes up with a cool idea, generally measured by how cool and new it is. Development is the process of turning it into a useful product, generally measured by user requests and usage, or if you're selling a product, revenue or volume. But this R&D aren't really one entity. They're really two entities. So how have other companies managed them? Right? There's been a purely ivory tower approach. Just do research, and when you're done, publish a paper and you're done. That's what universities do. And that's what Isaac Newton did. Right? Of course, it took many hundred years before his ideas really mattered. But he was just a researcher, and still many professors do that. And there's a role and a place for that, but that's not our model. Another model is build and they will come. Right? Let the research, the scientists, come up with something, and then whatever they say, go make it into a product. That's how Xerox PARC came up with all those great innovations. But as the scientists started driving products, they tend to make mistakes, and that's why graphical user interface, bitmap displays, Ethernet, and so on, all were wonderful ideas, but not productized by Xerox PARC. Another one is reverse DNR. Basically, hey, it's about making money, satisfying customers. Just go ask customers what they want. Find out what makes money. And we'll have them drive all the priorities of innovation. If customers ask for feature X, you shall build X. If you build Y and customers don't think they want it, you shall not build Y. Now that model, of course, will satisfy the customers, but the downside of that approach is that you'll miss the disruptive innovations. Imagine 15 years ago asking customers, hey, do you want a browser? They'll say, what? No, right? If you take that model, there would never be a browser. So that's good for some things, but not always great. Some companies just have separate R&D, have a research lab and have a product development organization. And I think the good thing about that is you can measure each one by its own metrics. Right? Research by how innovative and new it is, development by how useful, profitable, and how large a volume you sell and use. And then the two interact by research coming up with innovations and selling it by going to a product group saying, take this. And then product group can in turn request, please innovate in this area. And they're separately managed until they generally are at the CEO or president level. Those are some of the advantages. The disadvantage of the approach is that humans are humans. There's going to be emotions mixed in all this interaction. Right? Researchers will want to own things. Some researchers will feel, hey, I'm the smart PhD. I should get all the credit and I should own and tell you what to do. And some product people are going to feel, hey, I'm the one that's making money for the customer. You're just a random researcher. And I certainly have been in both sides of the negotiation. And I can tell you, it's quite frustrating to be in research, coming up with a brilliant innovation, going to a product group, and they say, oh, we don't have time for you. Customers aren't asking for this, go away. And then 3 years later, they would say, hey, our competitor just did that. I want it tomorrow. So that would be the downside of the separate R&D. So each of this has strengths and weaknesses. So Google's approach is very simple, is that R equals D. So we want people who are innovative and get stuff done. And the reason we want that is we firmly believe people who come up with ideas, love the ideas, who also have strong engineering capabilities, they're just more driven, more motivated to work harder and get stuff done. And there's no human emotion, politics, or technology transfer. It's that same person who would get it done. And we also want people who are innovative so that they don't have to be managed closely. So they're self-starters, come up with ideas, not ready to just be told what to do. And also be very open to admit failure when ideas don't work. So I think Google's magic really is finding a set of people who are innovative and also good engineers, and also the other things, care deeply about customers, and then really empowering and trusting them. And management merely becomes a matter of recruiting and setting up processes and supporting the teams and doing prioritization when necessary. But largely the people are the one who drive the organization.